Well, good morning everyone. What a crisp, clear, beautiful day here on the Door Peninsula. I'm Kevin O'Donnell. You're watching Behind the Door, a project that I've been working on that takes a look at some of the more obscure things of the Door Peninsula in northeast Wisconsin, a place where I happen to make my home in Door County. So we look at a lot of traditions, cultural things, and certainly the natural beauty and diversity that is the Door Peninsula, and create stories about how I take the photographs and how I go about taking the photographs that are for this Behind the Door project. So welcome, if you haven't already tuned into the channel. So we're here today in the very southern part of the Door at a beautiful, beautiful little country chapel called the Bridal Chapel. And we're actually here not to take photographs today, although it is a beautiful autumn day and the colors are just coming on very vibrant. I mean, this is just a beautiful and perfect time of year. But we're going to come back here tonight, actually, at around 10 o'clock tonight, and take pictures of this church and this steeple facing northward, of the stars, and particularly and specifically star trails. The North Star, Polaris, is just off to the right of the church here. And what we're going to do is record those star trails in a series of photos, take them back home, download them, and process those photos into a time lapse or a star trail. Now, star trails obviously are recording the stars. Because of the rotation of the Earth and we're facing northward, it's going to look like a big spiral behind the church here. So I take a lot of nighttime photography. It happens to be my favorite type of photography. And taking pictures of the Milky Way, like pictures I'll show you here now, and of star trails here, and I'll show you some examples. What makes them more interesting to me is having some interest in the foreground. So having a foreground subject that tells part of the story of the stars in the sky. So, you can certainly just point your camera up to the sky and record star trails, but I mean, having a subject in the foreground makes it all the more interesting. So the reason we're out here, or going to be out here tonight, two things. There's going to be clear skies, which is odd for this time of year in October. Usually clouds over pretty well. And the moon is waning. It's going to be about 85% full. It's going to rise in the skies over there, and I want to come out right when it is shining down the lane here and illuminating the side and partial front of the church. So it'll light everything up, and hopefully it'll light up some of these trees as well. So that's the plan. And since I can't take you on that excursion with me tonight because it's pitch dark out here except for the moonlight, it makes it really difficult to record. It turns out real grainy, and so I thought I would come out here today and show you how I'm going to set up, the gear that I'm going to use, the settings that I'm going to use, and then come back tonight, take the photos, and then go back home, download them, and process them using a program called StarStax. All right, so let's take a look around the church. I'll show you around a little bit, around the grounds here. It's just stunningly beautiful. And then I'll show you how I'm going to go about taking these photos tonight. That's the plan. Some great, just beautiful, simple detail on this church. It's really quite something. Beautiful. What a day. What a glorious day. Chilly, 39 degrees or so, 40 degrees. There's a boat out there on the Bay of Green Bay, coming up from the city of Green Bay, probably, headed toward Sturgeon Bay Canal, out into the lake, I would imagine. I don't know what denomination this church was at one time, but I'm pretty sure it's not Catholic anymore. I grew up Catholic, and I don't think they would put their confessionals out here. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Check out this view. This is out behind the church. If ever you wanted a country wedding, all right, take a bit of a walk around here. You know, this church was built in 1888, so it makes it 132 years old. I don't know how long it's been the bridal chapel, but a while now, I guess. Oh, darken that down. Hello. There we go. Yeah, the sun to the east here, bouncing off the side of this church. What a gorgeous, gorgeous place this is. And it has a lot of its own original material. The foundation is still original. The floor inside, the wood-burning stove is original, and probably most importantly, that steeple up there, you might have been able to tell from the drone shot, it's a little askew. And it still has the original bell. So, couples, after they get married, they walk out into the front of the church, ring the bell, announcing their vows, announcing they're married. All quite nice. And just this beautiful wooded lane that this church is located on. I'll tell you, there isn't a more tranquil setting. This is something right out of a Hallmark movie. And the one thing I get a kick out of is, as you're driving in here, there's one last sign of caution just before you get to the church. Maybe for some. All right. So let's get set up here. And I'll show you what I have in mind for the shoot tonight. So you may ask yourself, what type of equipment do I need to take shots of the night sky and of star trails? Three basic things you need. You need a camera with either a built-in interval timer or an external intervalometer so that you can take shot after shot without having to keep pressing the shutter button. We're going to be taking somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 250, 300 shots. We're going to shoot for 2 hours, maybe a little more, 2 hours and 15 minutes. So that's the first piece of equipment. The second piece of equipment you're going to need is a lens, a wide angle lens. This happens to be a 16 to 35 millimeter lens. It's got a very wide field of view, which is something that you want. You want to capture as much of the night sky as possible in your shot. And it has a very wide aperture. This happens to be a 2.8 lens, so that means it lets more light into the sensor, which is what you need to record the stars, those little specks in the sky. You need to gather as much light as possible. So between that, the f-stop 2.8, the shutter speed, which is going to be somewhere around 15 seconds, and the ISO setting, which is going to be somewhere between probably 200 and 500 because we have such a bright moon tonight. Those three things in combination comprise what they call the exposure triangle. And yeah, so the camera and the lens will take care of that. And then the third and very important piece of equipment is a tripod, a good, sturdy tripod. Not a flimsy tripod with real thin legs, because that can pick up micro vibrations. And when you're trying to capture little dots, little specks in the sky, Even walking around or a slight breeze against that tripod can create micro vibrations up through the legs and into the camera. So a good beefy tripod. So those are the three basic things. And then, of course, we have some supplemental things that we'll need. Actually, this isn't so supplemental as it is necessity, and that is a headlamp. I don't know if you know this or not, but it's pretty dark out at night, even under a full moon or a moon that's 85% full. And you're going to be out here for several hours. So get yourself a good headlamp, either one that has rechargeable batteries or one that you can recharge with a USB. This also happens to have a red light on it. Do yourself a favor, get one with a red light on it, because once your eyes are accustomed to the darkness, you don't want to be turning on a bright white light again. You can see everything that you need to see with just using a red light. It's not going to change or affect your vision, your night vision. So what else do we have here? We have tea, which I'm going to enjoy now. I'll bring some out again tonight. Snacks. I always get hungry when I'm out, particularly at night. Good to have snacks along, so I have the essentials, of course, and then some energy bar. And then because it's going to be so cold out here at night, tonight, I brought myself a wee nip or something, just a little bit stronger than water to help keep me warm. Also a good idea. Yeah, but don't drink and shoot. Just a little nip. Okay. One other item that actually is quite critical, regardless of the time of year, I always have in my bag hand warmers. Not for my hands. I can always wear gloves for that, but for the lens. Even during dewy summer months, condensation will build up on the lens, and you're going to be taking a sequence of photographs over a 1, 2, maybe 3 hour period of time. If that lens fogs over, your history, your night is wasted. And tonight we're expecting maybe a touch of frost. So what I'll do is I'll open up these hand warmers, activate them, and slip them underneath this rubber band here out on the barrel of the lens. Keep the lens warm. Now you can also, they make electronic lens warmers and little fans that you can attach to the front of your screen to keep them from fogging up, but that's more equipment than I care to carry. I have enough already. Hand warmers are cheap. They do the trick and they'll last for 4 or 5 hours. So that's my pro tip for today. All right, so let's take a look at this shot. First thing I want to do is set up my composition. So I'm going to be at a full 16 millimeters, widest angle possible. I want to make sure I get part of the lane going down here. It's a bit of a mystery in the shot. I think it tells a great story. It bends, goes down a little bit of a hill. There's beautiful maples now turning yellow, and the red maples here. And it leads past the church. But by far and away, the biggest subject in this shot is this church and its steeple, which is going to be illuminated very bright white because of the moon, which is going to be right here. Now, as the moon comes along and transits through the sky, you see these shadows here from this tree behind me? That's also going to show up in our photograph. So we're going to have to be careful about how we post-process that so that it isn't distracting from the main subject. And then the stars will form a spiral behind that steeple, and the center point of which will be the North Star over here. So let me just show you how I'm going to have this set up here. Level the base. Okay, so that's my basic composition here. I'll take a photograph of that and show you. With the church in the center. Okay, so some things that we need to do to our camera, some adjustments that we need to make to the internal settings to make sure that we reduce noise, reduce vibration, and make sure that the internal timer or intervalometer built into the camera is functioning properly. So the first thing we're going to want to do here when we turn on the camera is to go into our menu. And you see this high ISO speed noise reduction? We want to make sure that that is set to high. Long exposure noise reduction. We want to make sure that that is not enabled. We want to disable that. We want to turn that off. The next thing is our white balance. It's set to automatic white balance, but we're going to make sure that it's set to sun. And that's natural light, that's sunlight. After all, stars are essentially suns. So we want to make sure that it is set, the white balance is set to sunlight. And that's it on the settings. Now, if we go here to interval timer, this is where we're going to program how many shots to take and the amount of time the camera is going to be off between each shot. So I like the setting of 5 seconds. It gives a chance for the shutter to close, for the sensor to cool, so you don't get hot pixels, or reduce the amount of hot pixels you get from overheating your sensor. And then when it comes back on again, after 5 seconds, it'll take the next shot. Now I have this number of shots set to 00. On Canon cameras, 00 means unlimited. So some cameras have, you can take up to 999 photos, or set that whatever you want. So we're going to leave that at unlimited. So if we turn the camera off now, it's going to automatically disable this interval timer. So when we come out here this evening, we have to make sure that that is set before we start taking our photos. You'll know it right away anyway, because after it takes one photo, the camera is just going to wait for further instructions. Set your camera to manual. This happens to be, ISO 800 at 4.5 aperture, ISO 100. It obviously will be different tonight, but these are the manual settings that would take, a relatively nice picture here now. Maybe brighten that up just a touch. And then the next thing is, when we're out here at night, we need to focus. And we're going to set our focus to manual. And the reason for that is we don't want the camera searching on something to focus and dipping in and out of focus while it's searching in the dark for something to focus. So searching for something to focus on in the dark can be really, really challenging. Fortunately for us tonight, we're going to have a nice bright moon illuminating this church. So what I would focus on here are probably the vents in the bell tower to get those nice and crisp. Now, shooting at 16 millimeters on this camera, I know that my minimum focal length for depth of field is around 1.5 foot, around 18 inches. So anything from 18 inches onward is going to be in focus. So I just have to make sure that if that bell tower is in focus, then I know the stars behind it are going to be in focus. So let me show you how I would do that. And if we didn't have a bell tower, I would find the brightest star in the sky and do the same thing. I would focus in on it until it was as small as could be and the edges were as sharp as could be. And then that's my focus is set, my manual focus is set for the duration of the shoot. So let me show you how I would do this. I turn on the info screen here. So you see this little magnifying glass in the corner here? So if I just tap on that, I love this touch screen here. That's going to magnify the image one time. I want to zoom in on the bell tower. That's 5 times. I can adjust my focus. So now that we have found our focus, as soon as I hit the shutter now, since the interval timer has been enabled, it's going to start taking photos until I turn the camera off. So you can hear that now, it's taking a photo every 5 seconds. Obviously tonight it's going to be much longer because the shutter speed is going to be set to around 15 seconds. So that's it. We let that run. I let it run until the battery dies out. And these Canon batteries in this weather will last probably around 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and 20 minutes. Okay. Wonder where they're going with that. So that pretty much wraps up what we need to do in advance of what our shoot is going to be tonight. And apologize, I guess, for having to do this during the day, but I've tried filming at night and it just doesn't work out. So the next thing to do, I guess, is just go home, rest up, and head back on out here about 10 o'clock tonight. And I guess the next time I'll see you is after we download the photos. All right. So we're just wrapping up out here. Been out here a couple of hours. It's a beautiful night, a bit chilly, just a touch of frost. But it's been a good night overall. Beautiful, quiet, stunningly clear skies. Yeah, just another perfect night out here. That's about it for here. I'm going to pack up and head home. Good night, everyone. Before we get onto the Star Trail composite, I want to show you this single image taken early on in the sequence, where the church and the tops of the trees and the lane, they're all illuminated from the car's headlights that swept around a curve about a half-mile away, out on the country highway. When it happened, I thought for sure it ruined my shot, but I was pleasantly surprised with this final result. I did end up removing the utility line that ran across from the trees on the left side of the photo to the church, because it caught that beam of headlights and shone like a lightsaber. But overall, this was a pretty happy accident. And here's the composite of those 382 images I took after batch post-processing them in Lightroom and then running them through an app called StarStax, which does the tedious work of sequencing for you as the stars progress along their path, thus leaving this light trail. I'll put a link below where you can check out the StarStax program if you're interested. I like how the star trail leads down and through the image. I left the tree line and the lane leading through it purposely dark to retain that feeling of the moonlit night. And I kept the stars the brightest part of the image so that they didn't compete for that distinction with the church. I ended up setting my composition about 10 feet to the right of where I was earlier in the day. I just couldn't get it to work from where I was. And this gives the overall composition much better balance, and it fits nicely into a Fibonacci sequence overall. It's not a balance perspective I use too often, but I think it worked well here. I did have to isolate about 25 images that had either jets flying overhead or Elon Musk's fleet of Starlight satellites leaving their trail. and I use the spot removal tool in Lightroom to get rid of them. It makes for a cleaner image in the end, and one that I'm pretty happy with. That does it for this week's Behind the Door Star Trail photo adventure, and I hope you take the opportunity to capture the night sky. It's really a wonderful time to be out photographing. And if you do, I wish you fair weather and clear skies. And until next time, take care of yourself, and we'll see you down the road.